Welcome to the Reflexio podcast, unhurried conversations with men and women from the East, West, and Global South who are living out the gospel in a variety of kingdom contexts around the world.
Join us as we explore the world of missions and marketplace service thoughtfully and biblically through these often hidden stories of God at work.
So it's good to see you, Paul. How are you?
I'm okay, Don. Thanks. Doing well.
I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite a while.
Yeah.
Can you just sort of tell a bit of your story, how you came to faith?
Yeah. So, I grew up in a Muslim nation, Don. So I grew up with a lot of Muslim friends around me, and I was fortunate enough to go to college in United Kingdom in Great Britain, and I think my spiritual journey began there. So whilst I was in college, I started using recreational drugs, uh, cannabis, marijuana, and then I made some friends and made some good friends, and one of them was a guy from India. So he invited me to go to India during my, I think, first year of college or second year of college. So I went to India. So, I arrived in Bombay at 2 a.m. in the morning and was really tired. And I stepped out of the arrival hall, and there was just this flood of bodies, on the floor. Everyone, there were so many people sleeping, in the arrival hall, and these were not passengers. So I was like, wow. So that was my first, welcome to India. And
People sleeping everywhere.
yeah, and sleeping everywhere, and people asking for money, and of course, my friend wasn't there. He was in Madras, and so I got on the bus the next day. I found a place to stay. I got on the bus the next day and made my way to Madras. Of course, like on the bus, I was completely, stoned, and I was just out of it. So I was sleeping on the bus. I can't even remember how I got tickets to the bus, but I got on the bus and made my way down to Madras. I woke up halfway, on the journey, and I was seeing all these slums. I saw all these slums around me, and it's just like miles and miles of slums. And so, I got into Madras, met my friend, hung out for a few days. Well, when I say hung out, I mean, I didn't even go out of the hotel room. I just I was just high all the time with this friend of mine. And we went out once to see his friends, and that was about it.
Really good time.
Yeah. So, and so it was during the time when Rajiv Gandhi got assassinated. So we were in Madras. So there was a lot of security, and so it was a very tense time. And I got tickets to Delhi after that. I spent a couple of days in Madras, got tickets to New Delhi on the train. Because my friend told me to go up to Himachal Pradesh, to this place called Manali. That's where most people go. People who want to have a good time.
Yes, and do drugs and all that.
Yeah. So I got on the train to Delhi, and took me, I think, 2 nights to get there on the train. again, that was an experience. Yeah. Um, so
I've ridden the trains in India. I can remember and picture it.
yeah.
It was 40 years ago for me.
Yeah, so this was like, in 1990, I think. So yeah, it's a long time
Okay.
ago. That 1 month in India, I think that was the beginning of my spiritual awakening. So I met a lot of people there, and I saw a lot of things there, suffering, how people lived. And during my time in Vashish, I hung around with like people. Well, they call them the sahus, the gurus. And so I was like thinking, to myself, how can these people live like that? And I mean, so they smoke marijuana all day, meditate, and and that's about it. And people come to them to ask for advice, to ask for blessings. So I was curious, what was going on in their minds and hearts. Yeah. So that was my like spiritual awakening. Um, and so yeah, I lost a lot of weight in India. Oh boy, yeah, that was a really really like bad
Rough
experience.
time.
Yeah, so so I left India with this like yearning to know, like yeah, to know more about like what was the purpose, like why am I here for, what's the purpose of my life. And
At,
so I
at this
left
point,
India. Sorry.
just a question. At this point, you grew up among Muslims in the Muslim family, but you didn't necessarily think of yourself as a Muslim?
So I wasn't a Muslim, even though I grew up in a Muslim nation. So I was a minority.
Okay.
So yeah, so my mom, like yeah, she was sort of a practicing Catholic, but my dad was like more agnostic. Yeah, so but my mom had her own spiritual journey as well. Yeah, so she drifted in and out of like Catholicism, and my dad, he was really never really into religion. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Keep going with your journey.
yeah. So so I left India, went back home to Brunei, thinking a lot about India, and also that started like this not only spiritual awakening, this like yearning to travel. So after that, I just like because I was doing anthropology in college. So like
Okay.
looking at like meeting different people, experiencing different cultures. Yeah, I really like that. So it's also like so I had travel bug after that, after India. So when I went back to the UK, um, I was planning my next trip. Where should I go
Okay.
next? Yeah,
You got the travel bug.
yeah. And also not only travel, but like to seek like some spiritual experience. So because like going to India and seeing the mountains there, because like we were up in the mountains, that, yeah, it was really beautiful. So I really loved that. So I wanted to go to a place where there were mountains, and like where it was unique. So I started thinking to myself, so where in the world, like can I go, which is unique and like it's full of mountains. So I chose like South America. I
Okay. The
started
other
planning.
hemisphere.
Yeah, so and also of course, like there's lots of dope. Yeah, so I chose South America. So I started like reading up on like South America, and and like Ecuador was the cheapest place and the easiest place to go because it was so small. So after I graduated, I I went to South America. So I started, well, I I funded my trip to South America by by selling drugs on campus. So that's how I funded my trip. So I after I graduated, which I'm still quite amazed how I even graduated. Yeah. Yeah. So I left for South America um, in January. I landed in Quito. I couldn't even speak a word of Spanish, but that
Yeah.
was okay. So I figured I'll manage somehow. I didn't speak Hindi as well in India, and
In India,
I managed.
they do speak English there a bit.
Yeah, well, some of them, yeah, yeah. So, but I managed. So anyway, I landed in Quito and went around for like a couple of days, and met some people, met some Argentinians, and hung around with them for a while. Traveled, so these Argentinians, they hired a van. So we went around like Ecuador, for I think 1 to 2 weeks. Yeah, because I had brought some like dope from England. So so we enjoyed that like during our 2 week trip, and they introduced me to some of their pushers like in Ecuador. So after that we were just like bumming around like in the van, traveling, going to places like, so they brought me like, and they introduced me to all like these places they go to, and so they go to Ecuador every year. So they brought me like to the Amazon, to the like Andes, and then down to the Pacific coast, like on the beaches. Yeah. So yeah, so I traveled with them, and then they went back to Argentina, and then I met some other people, so we hung around together, and then it was time to go to Colombia because I had only 3 months like on my visa in Ecuador. So I went to Colombia, basically did the same thing, and but in Colombia it was like more of it was a very intense place. Yeah, yeah, I met a lot of like people in Colombia. I mean, I mean, people with all kinds of life experience, put it that way.
Yeah.
um, and so in Colombia I was there for 9 months. I stayed in Ecuador for 6 months, and I hung out on the Caribbean coast most of the time in Colombia, in this place called Santa Marta. And you know yeah, we did a lot of like drugs there. I mean, even more than Ecuador. That was really intense. But at the same time, I was on this spiritual journey, and like I I didn't, you know I didn't experience. I was I was way off. I couldn't experience what I was looking for. Even though I was yeah.
I'm
Uh,
curious, Paul. I've heard people who do psychedelic drugs say that they do it for the spiritual experience. Were you trying to get it through the drugs too? Or was
yeah,
it just, yeah?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was nowhere near, you know. And the more I did, the more the worse it got. Um, so I finally decided to to go up to the mountains to there's this Indian tribe in the Sierra Nevada. They're called the Kogi. Yeah, so it's untouched by civilization, and so they worship Mother Earth. They call her
Okay.
like Mother Earth. So I was like preparing to go up there with a bunch of Colombians. Well, they invited me there, yeah, to join them. And just before I went up to the mountain, my legs started swelling, my left leg. Back then I didn't know what was happening, but now I know. like I had deep vein thrombosis. And
What is that?
well, it's basically a clot in your veins
Okay.
in your leg, that if you, because your blood starts to clot. And I didn't know I
Right.
had a genetic condition. I had a genetic disorder, blood disorder. So my blood clots really easily. And I never experienced that till I got to Colombia. So before going to Colombia, before going up the mountains, yeah, this, yeah, my leg started swelling. And so if the clot breaks off and makes its way to your heart or your brain,
It could kill you.
and then that's it. And so this is like common in air travel. So when passengers travel,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, so it's called deep vein thrombosis, DVT. So I didn't know, like, I had that disorder. So my legs were swelling. My left leg was swelling to the point I couldn't put pressure on it. And so I was getting to go to this like mountain, or to this village in the mountain. I made it halfway on horseback. So we use horses to get up there.
Wow.
Some of them walk, but I had to use a horse because I couldn't walk. But even like going on the horse was just like, it was excruciating pain. And I we were halfway up the mountain, so we stayed like in the camp. And at that camp, I was in so much pain. And everyone figured it was just best, like, I come back down to the village. So I didn't make it to that Indian village. I came back down, and I tell you, Dawn, it was like when when I finally got to the village, I just, I was just like in so much pain. I was lying on the ground and nearly passed out. So for the next month, I was in a hammock. And so by that, during my time in Colombia, like, I think half the time we were sleeping in hammocks.
Right.
Either outside or in someone's house, like, outdoors. So I was sleeping in this hammock, like in this lady's house, outdoors, in much thatched house, for about a month. Yeah, she fed me, yeah, she fed me, and it was very basic there. And so, like, I started thinking, what am I doing here? Like, trying to find, like, God, trying to find, like, why am I here for? My purpose in life. And it's just like things are getting from bad to worse. Yeah. Yeah. So then I got home, and then, well, I did. Yeah. So I was preparing to go home. So finally, I made it back to Brunei. I got a job for a year, and then, like, started to hang out with my Muslim friends again. Started to get involved in drugs again, and then, yeah, I knew, like, this is no good. I should bring this to a stop. So I realized, like, there was no, yeah, I couldn't really stop on my own. And I knew, like, I needed, like, some higher power to help me. So one day, in desperation, I prayed, if there's a God, if you are there, God, you better tell me what to do. Why I'm here for. And because if you don't, I'll probably end up dead. And a week later, yeah, God replied. So what happened was, I was in my room, and I saw, this was like during the evening. So I saw this bright light outside my window, just hovering. and I thought I was like, going crazy. So
Okay.
I stepped forward to the window and just looked at the light, and suddenly there's this presence in the room, and I knew that was God.
Wow.
I felt so filthy, and I didn't know what holy was before that, but that particular night, that incident made me aware of, like, yeah, not only made me aware, I experienced what holiness meant and experienced what sin meant. You know what?
So
Yeah,
this presence, you felt it's so holy that you felt
yeah. I
filthy
felt
with
so
sin.
dirty.
Yeah.
I felt filthy, and that presence was so powerful. I was sitting on my chair, and that presence was so powerful, and I had a flashback of my life. So, like, I saw, like, my life just, like, just fast forward, and then I saw, like, the globe, and then I heard a voice, and that an audible voice saying, you be my witness, to all nations and to the ends of the earth, and I'll open your spiritual eyes. Of course, I didn't know what that meant, but that presence was so strong, so overwhelming, so holy.
Wow.
I was sitting on my chair and I just fell to the ground, and, like, I couldn't even say anything because, like, because I was just overwhelmed. And in my heart, I cried out, "Forgive me, forgive me." And I was delivered. I started screaming, and yeah, I started screaming, wailing, sobbing, and I passed out. I passed out, I think, for maybe 1.5 hours, because no one was in the house, so no one knew what happened. So after that, I woke up, and I knew, like, wow, that was the God of the Bible. I just knew it.
Wow. Wow.
you know, I had read the
You're
Bible, but I didn't know, like, who Jesus was and all that.
right.
But after that, I
Right.
knew, like, that is the God of the Bible.
Your experience. I just been reading Acts this week, and right near when Paul's speaking to Agrippa, I think it is, he tells his story again, and he says he saw this blinding light. Who are you? And then immediately Jesus said, "I'm Jesus, and I'm taking you from darkness to light, and I'm sending you to the nations." It's almost exactly what he did to you too. It's incredible.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm not Paul.
Wow.
But anyway,
No, I know, but you're called. You were brought out of darkness, just like Paul was. Yeah.
yeah. So like, I awoke from that experience with, like, feeling really light, like there was this huge burden carried off me. Yeah, so that was like my search for God ended. Of all places, like,
He found you.
yeah, in my room, I didn't have to travel anywhere, or like, get high, or do all the things I did. Yeah, yeah. So that was my conversion experience, because there was the deliverance then. So, like, I broke free from drugs overnight. I
So
had
you never
no I
did
had
it?
no craving, but I didn't know that. But so after that, I tried to get high, but I couldn't. I couldn't, and I knew, like, God did something in my life, like it just, like, completely freed me from the effects of, like, yeah, the physical effects of drugs. Yeah,
So with this kind of an experience, you didn't really know any Christians. So how did that the short version of sort of how'd you get them there into a call and discipled and
yeah.
yeah. How did that go into a life of ministry?
Yeah. So my mom, like prior to my conversion, so she finally became a Christian because, like, she was undergoing, yeah, she was going through a lot of hard stuff as well with in life, and she searched in different places with different people, but didn't really find the answer she was looking for. So she became a believer, and so I knew that this conversion had to do with people praying for me as well.
Okay.
And they saw me, like, when I was back home in Brunei, well, in my nation.
You
They
you've
they
said it several times.
All right, okay, anyway. Anyway, so when I was back home, they they saw me, and they knew, like, I was in a mess. My life was in a mess. So there were
So they
people
were
praying for me, but even
praying for you.
after what happened that night, no one really knew what was going on inside me. And I didn't know, like, how to, like, explain to people,
Sure.
but they knew, like, there was definitely this, like, change in me. So I joined this, like, small fellowship and started to grow, but I was still struggling inside. um yeah, because I had so much stuff, that wasn't dealt with. Yeah. uh, yeah, I was delivered from drugs. I knew, like, what I'm supposed to do now, but there was still a lot in me, the bondages and all that. That no that was bothering me, spiritually. Yeah, I had a very intense time after my conversion, spiritual battles.
Was there anyone to walk with you through them, or were you just journeying alone?
Yeah, my mom tried to journey
The
with
spirit.
me. Yeah, but
Yeah.
no one really understood. I didn't really tell anyone because, like, I wasn't sure that they were able to understand. So I was, like, basically on my own. My mom, like, helped me, but even, yeah, I mean, even, like, it was limited, but it helped me in some ways. Yeah.
So um, we can't go through all the journey, but can you tell a little bit how you got called into ministry and how you ended up sort of doing what you've been doing for the last couple of decades?
Yeah. So after I joined this fellowship, the pastor, he saw this change in me, and he heard about my story, how I heard God, how I heard God's voice, and he hooked me up with YWAM, Youth with a Mission.
Okay. Yeah.
So after that, I joined with a Mission, and we went on our, so, like, with youth with a Mission,
DTS.
the DTS. You go on the
Hmm.
outreach after your class training.
Yeah. 3 months and 3 months out. Yeah.
Yeah. So during our mission, the mission part of the course, um, we came here to this place where I'm serving now.
Okay.
So that was how, like, I was first exposed to this place and to the people here.
Okay.
And after DTS, I went back home, and so there was series of, like, incidents, divine incidents, that that caused me to end up here. um so I'll give you an example. So after YWAM, I went to Bible school, and there was this church next to my Bible school. So the only time I stepped into this church was this one Sunday. And before I stepped into that church, they gave me a prayer letter for the UPG group here in this place I'm
Okay.
serving. So I'm thinking to myself, well, is this God talking or what? But there were a series of incidents after that as well that that made me
Clearly God was guiding you.
yeah.
Yeah. So um, you referred to being delivered in your actual conversion. I know in a previous conversation you talked a bit more what that meant. Um, Also, just a few years ago, you took a course on deliverance ministry. Um, how did that course and reflecting back on your experience, was that it helped you see more clearly where you've come from, and did you get some more freedom? I'm just interested in how you view that part, like the power of the demonic in your life and then the lives of the people around you. Just any reflections on that?
Yeah, so Don, after I took that course, I started to reflect more on my experience on what happened during my conversion.
Yes.
So after my conversion, you know, I couldn't listen to music, read the newspaper, or watch TV because every time I did that, there would be all these cryptic messages in my mind. So my
Wow.
mind was like, it was like, oh, this is, I'm watching the news, and then suddenly, there's all kinds of messages like from the news, like connected to other things in the news. So like one way, like everything was interrelated. So my mind was like working full time, even listening to music. So there were cryptic messages like in the lyrics, reading the newspaper,
Now,
and
was this just things you were thinking, or were voices telling you this stuff?
things I was thinking and voices as well. So
Okay.
so my mind was just like, full of voices and thoughts and all that, and I had never experienced anything like that, even when I was doing drugs. And now I'm not even doing drugs anymore. And I was hearing voices, like, getting all these thoughts. And yeah, it was like really driving me crazy. So I knew like I had to stop listening to music. I had to stop watching the news, reading the paper, and just focus on the Bible. But it took me some time to get there, to figure out what was going on. And at the
Okay.
same time, my emotions, my mental state was so unstable, my emotions as well, because of that. I couldn't sleep at night. So after I was delivered, I knew, like, there was this thing called evil.
Yeah.
That the night after I was delivered, I went outside and I could sense, like, evil just staring at me. I could sense like the devil is just staring at me really mad. So
That
I
he had lost
knew,
your.
yeah, I I knew, like, the demonic was real after
Real.
after my
Yeah.
deliverance. And so um so every night after my deliverance, I think for a couple of weeks or even a month, I was, I couldn't go to sleep because I was so fearful. Because every time I tried to sleep, the demons would come and they would like physically assault me. So I was afraid of closing my eyes. Yeah. And the only thing that helped me was like putting worship music on. So so
Okay.
so so that helped me. So and yeah, I mean, so that helped me, like, pull through. So, like, when morning came, I was so relieved. Like, I mean, even during the daytime, sometimes, like, I would, like, when I sort of wanted to take a nap because I was so tired, then I would get physically assaulted as well. Yeah.
Wow.
And
Did this continue until you went to YWAM?
no, I mean, this I can't remember now, but it sort of gradually ceased because I was in like a fellowship as well. In the
Right,
church, I
right.
was going to like Bible studies, so the intensity decreased over time. But yeah, during my like maybe first few weeks or month of conversion, that it was really intense, and I didn't know what was going on, and but I knew like this was demonic. It was the devil, and I
But you
didn't
didn't know what
know.
to do, how to.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't know what to do, and I like like I was saying, who should I tell this to? Like, do people really understand? What's going on with me? And so like when I took this course on deliverance, it started to make sense now. When I looked at I read through like the passages, heard about like the stories, and reflected on my own experience on why this was happening in my life, and like the footholds in my life that weren't dealt with after I was converted. um, and so it started to make sense, and using that, now I can see where the believers we are trying to disciple, you know so what's happening in their minds, in their hearts, when they come to faith. What kind of like oppression are they experiencing? Well, if it's anything like mine, boy,
it's
I'm not surprised. Like they fall back into Islam.
yeah.
So because I
So
was fortunate.
now you've got some tools to help such people to get out from underneath that oppression.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
was fortunate enough to have like a fellowship that I could go to on a regular basis, like almost every week. A couple of times a week. But the believers, like Muslim like background believers, that they're in situations where that's not possible.
yeah.
So I was thinking like, I mean, just when I was doing this course, I couldn't watch the news, I couldn't listen to music or read the papers because my mind would just go crazy. So I'm wondering, in their situation, after they come to faith, how they must feel like when they listen to the prayers 5 times a day. What goes on in their mind, in their bodies, in their emotions.
Yeah. It's not just over. It's got stuff going on.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
this. Yeah, so yeah, so that's helped me understand a little bit more about like the challenges they face.
Have you had any opportunity in the years since you took the course to actually help a brother or a couple sort of get victory over these things in their lives and get some push forward in their walk with God?
So yeah, so like so what happened on was, prior to me taking the course, what I saw happening in the ministry was a lot of like Muslims, well, not a lot, like Muslims would come to faith and they would fall back, eventually revert back to Islam, and so this was the norm.
Yeah.
And I attributed it to, yeah, social pressure, family pressure, loss of like a livelihood.
Right.
I knew it was like something spiritual was involved, but I didn't really know what. So so what I saw was like what most people see. So this was happening with my national partners as well. So they saw people come to faith and revert back to Islam, and they revised their discipling materials because they thought they needed better discipling materials, but results were the same. There wasn't much change. So after I took this course, I tried to what I did was I tried telling friends, colleagues, nationals who were working with believers. Um, you know, maybe there are some things we haven't addressed in our discipling,
Right.
and maybe it's good to look at some of these issues that we we have not really thought about. Because like when this course came up, the first thing I said was, yeah, this is it. I think like this is what we're missing. Because
Yeah.
I've been wrestling with that for years. I was
Mm.
thinking prior before this course came out, I had been thinking, trying to find the answer. What is making all these Muslims, many of these Muslims, go back to Islam?
Yeah.
We have tried so many things, but
Yeah.
they are still going back to Islam. So I shared with my friends and colleagues about what I learned. And yeah, I mean, some of the things like in the course were pretty radical. Yeah, especially renouncing Islam, the way
Yeah.
it's like it's mapped out. And so when they went through like that list of renunciation, yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty in your face kind of thing. Yeah,
Right.
and I think a lot of them weren't prepared to bring that to their believers because they were afraid they would get offended.
Right.
And I introduced it to like colleagues as well from our all. They had questions as well.
Yeah.
Not all of them, and I think like some of them knew like they needed to do something more, but they didn't know just what.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't quite put their finger on it. They
Yeah.
knew believers weren't growing in faith. And they knew something was stopping them from growing. And I introduced it to like the leaders of our this nationals I'm working with. I think they thought it was. I don't know whether they read it, but the ones that did, I think, thought the same way. It was pretty extreme. Um, so we haven't really had a chance to use it. So what I
Okay.
did was I showed this prayers of renunciation to a good Muslim background friend. I mean, she was, she suffered intense persecution, um, and her whole family left her and all that. So she's got like no one around her now. So I showed it to her and I asked her like, what do you think of this? And she said, yeah, I think it's okay, because when I came to faith, we did the same thing, but maybe not in so much detail. Yeah, but I don't see like I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it's vital that like when Muslims come to faith, they renounce Islam. And
Did she go through the prayers too at that point or not?
She read through it, and there were things in that prayer that she had never prayed through before.
Right.
So I think like she prayed through those prayers, the ones that she never prayed through before.
Yeah.
And she came back and said, yeah, I mean, I don't see why people should be worried about, like, praying through these prayers, or leading someone to pray through these prayers. Yeah. So yeah, so that's as far as I have got to using it. But with Muslims, the thing is, you can also use this with non-Muslims, and I've used this with my national partners. So we work with a lot of nationals here, and many of them
Yeah.
come from churches which are traditional and probably
Right.
syncretic as well.
Syncretistic. Yeah.
And so they've
Yeah.
never really experienced freedom in Christ.
Okay.
So I went through the materials with them, and then, and for those that were wanting to be free, led them through prayers. And yeah, I saw, like, God's power in them. For those who were really keen on freedom, yeah, it transformed them.
That's great. Um, I'm watching the clock a bit here. We had a number of other topics to go with, but which one would you like to talk about? If we've say got 10 or 15 more minutes. Um, you talked about the increasing efforts to have local ministry teams having people from many different cultures and backgrounds, and some of the challenges that that brings along with teams. I don't know if you want to talk about that a bit, what your observations are. Is it better to have teams of separate cultural background working in coordination rather than everyone trying to work in the same team? What's it looking like on the ground for you guys there?
Yeah, it has its challenges. So in my organization, it's well, in our region, this part of the world is predominantly Western. So I've
The
been here.
team, the workers are predominantly Western.
Yeah,
Is that what you mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I've been here for 25 years now. When I first joined, it was that way, and it hasn't changed much.
Okay.
And so there are a few, workers from other cultures, majority cultures, but not too much. And I think, like, one of the reasons is, and I don't know whether this addresses the question, but one of the reasons is I find, and I do have some, like, workers from the majority world here now in my area, working directly with me. When I tell them you have to raise your own funds, on top of that you have to learn English. If English is not already, if you don't already know English, you have to learn it, because, like, most of our teammates are Westerners, and team meetings are conducted in English. And and third, on top of that, you have to learn the local language.
It's not easy.
It's not easy, yeah. And then after that, some of these workers come from countries whose passports are not welcome here. So they have, like, visa challenges to get into the country. And if after all that they finally get here, they have to get used to team culture, which is predominantly Western. And I remember my wife, she's used to like Singapore English or Singlish. So when
Yes.
she first joined our team, our expat team, everyone was speaking in in American English, and she had a really tough time understanding. I mean, she dreaded going to the team meetings, because she couldn't, yeah, she couldn't really understand what they were saying, and like if she spoke, they would probably not understand what she was saying as well. Yeah.
And
So
she knew English. Yeah.
yeah. And another thing was is oh yeah, this one more thing, but yeah, I can't remember. But anyway,
Yeah. So um, you would say be a bit cautious about this push to make all of our teams multicultural. Is it?
yeah.
It's not very. It's not necessarily the best strategy.
Well, um, I don't think I don't think we can push it the way we want to, but I think we have to be wise in how we pursue it. And oh
Okay.
yeah, I wanted to share this story. Yeah. So uh, when during my team leader, 20 years ago, he's an American. So he had two cars. So he had a four-wheel drive and another like MPV. So he was working with a national partner who was also the director of this language school he was working in. So he came to a meeting one day and said, "It's not right that it's not right that Mr. X is riding on his bike when I have two cars. So I'm going to give him my four-wheel drive." So he gave him his four-wheel drive, and the director told him, "Look, I can't drive that four-wheel drive. I'm not, I'm not, I'm not used to driving a four-wheel drive. Can I sell it?" So we were thinking like he was going to be really excited and be really thankful, and he turns around and says, "It's not for me. Can I sell it and get another car?" And so sometimes yeah, our good intentions, yeah, yeah, we yeah, we might get a different response.
Yeah. 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 I could tell stories like that too. Indeed. It's yes. Yeah. Um, Maybe another question for the last, I don't know, 15 or 20 years in global ministry mission circles, uh, there's been a lot of emphasis and excitement about church planting movements or disciple making movements. And I actually made a trip to Indonesia about 10 years ago just to meet some movement leaders and get a picture of what's going on in that country. And you've expressed to me that you've been around this too for quite a while, and you're having some concerns about the stress on movements and rapid multiplication. Um, I don't know if you want to tell some of that, or just share a couple of stories around why you're starting to wonder if this is necessarily always the best approach.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess Dave Watson, right, Don?
Yeah, I mean everyone knows of him. I've
Yeah.
only met him once for like 10 minutes, but I know of him.
Yeah. So I met him personally like 18 years ago, and then he was invited to a retreat for nationals, church planters, during the same time. So there must have been over 100 church planters at this retreat, and also he was sharing about the movement that was happening in India and introducing the workers to the DBS, the Discovery Bible Study, the Person of Peace.
Yeah, all these concepts. Yeah,
Yeah, So that was like 18 years ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, no one was interested. Yeah, no one.
Okay. I say, oh, whatever.
Yeah, no one. Yeah, that was the response, and no one was really interested. And fast forward, present day, almost every single one of them that is still on the field from that retreat is now pursuing CPMs.
Okay. Wow.
In one method or another. Yeah.
And
So
what kind of fruit are they having?
yeah.
That's the challenge.
So with this particular model of like CPM that they're using, so they've been using this model. I remember when the leadership pushed out this model, CPM model, 15 years ago. There was like a lot of resources were invested, like in getting people trained, in bringing trainers in to train these people, in evaluation and all that. A lot of resources, and um, there were moments of excitement. So people were
Yeah.
thinking, right, this is like,
We we found it.
this is it, we,
Yeah.
yeah, we're going to see movements in like all these UPGs we're working with, like, for years. And so there were like, moments of like, what everyone thought was a breakthrough. And people were following that, and then it gradually fizzled out. So,
Okay.
so this has been the pattern for the past 15 years. We think something's happening, and then it slowly dies out. And then something happens again, and everyone gets excited. And then something, and then it fizzles out.
So
And,
when
I,
you
and
say something happens and then it fades out, do you mean there's dozens or hundreds of people confessing faith, and then they over time they drift away from the faith? Does it look like that, or is it more the workers get excited and then they get discouraged? Or is
what
it both?
it's more the first one. They see people
Okay.
coming to faith, and churches like being formed, and churches birthing other churches, generational growth.
Right.
But it's not across the board. It only happens in some places, in some like UPGs. So you see like generational growth up to like the fourth, fifth generation, and then you get
And just
excited.
for those who aren't familiar with this terminology like you and I are, when you say fourth generation, you're not talking about children and grandchildren and great grandchildren. You're talking about spiritual generations, right?
Yeah, I'm talking
Yeah.
about churches birthing other churches.
Yeah. That's one generation. And then
Yeah.
if they birth another church, that's another generation. Okay. Yeah.
So they
So that was
see
happening.
it's happening. So there's growth happening, and people are really excited. The leaders are really excited, and then it stops.
The growth
That
stops,
I mean um,
the movement.
the movement. Well, no, it's not exactly a movement. The growth stops.
Okay.
The growth stops. Sometimes it shrinks, but it never quite grows again. And sometimes it shrinks, and sometimes it disappears altogether. So this has been the pattern for the past 15 years. And I think now my national partners, they are wiser.
Okay.
They realize that this is like not the golden key
Okay.
to see movements happening. And again, it comes
So
back
they,
to discipling. Like we talk
so they're,
about deliverance,
yeah.
and some of these materials they don't do a good job on, well, they hardly touch on deliverance. And they tell workers to get the amulets, get them to say a prayer of renunciation, but they don't go deep in terms of destroying footholds. And so this is one reason I think, like, many people are reverting back to Islam, because they're never really set free from Islam.
Yeah. They weren't deeply discipled, and they didn't learn how to walk in freedom.
Yeah, I mean, because
Yeah.
the stress is on movements, we want them to share as fast as possible,
Yeah.
even before they are even ready sometimes. So there's this push for them to be sharing their faith. And I think we've learned a lot over the years that we can't force these people to share when they're not ready. And so a lot of, we have learned a lot of lessons. My national partners, before, they used to say, no, we can't do it this way, we have to, we can't be flexible, we need to do it this way. These days,
Follow the method. Yeah.
follow the method. Yeah, because that's what the trainer says. You don't do it any other way, you just do it this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you do it another way, the blame is on you if it fails.
But they're
So
starting to realize it's not quite so simple.
so a lot of workers, they get discouraged, and they feel guilty if it doesn't work the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's not been really helpful. I, but I think we've grown over the years. We realize, like, that we can't make it happen. It's not the methods really that will do the that will bring
So
people to faith.
as you look at things now, then do you feel like you and the partners and are working with, they're starting to get a clearer vision that when people come to faith, they need to disciple deeply, they need to work with them and see them mature, and they're not so much focusing on rapidity but depth? Is that a shift that's happening? Are people looking for deeper discipleship?
It's a shift, but it's a very slow shift.
Okay. So it's not a new movement or
Yeah,
a new trend yet.
it's been a slow shift, because what's happening is people are coming to faith, but they're still going about doing their religious duties as a Muslim.
Okay. So there's sort of secret believers, and they're acting like they're Muslims still.
Yeah. So
They're
so
not thinking that they're insiders. They're just being cautious. Don't want people to know.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, some of them have never been like that religious anyway. They've been nominal Muslims. But for the most part, people still identify themselves as Muslims. And, like, going through the deliverance course again, it all makes sense now why these people can't grow in faith, because, like, they're never really free from Islam. They still have all these spiritual, like, challenges, that's going through their minds, their heart, tugging at them. And we are not helping by encouraging them to break free of Islam.
Yeah. Wow. Um, Let me ask you one more question. We've gone longer than planned, but that's okay. It's good. It's been a great conversation, and you have quite the story of God's grace in your life. Um, if you were to look back, it's been 25 years you've been there. Uh, if you think back to your 25-year younger self, is there anything you would say to yourself from these 25 years of experience that you'd want to pass on maybe to younger colleagues who are just starting off?
Yeah, I would say, like, get training in Islam, because a lot of people here that come to the field are not really trained in Islam. I came to the field without any real training in Islam, even though I grew up in a Muslim nation. And second, I would say find a mentor who can help you navigate your time on the field. I never really had a mentor from the context I grew up in a context where where mission is it's not a thing, so I was not I didn't have those kind of networks. But now I don't think it's a problem finding those kind of missional networks, people who are trained like you, who've been on the field, who know Islam, who know what discipling means, who know the challenges of Muslim background believers. So these are the two things I'll say, Don. Get training in Islam and get a great mentor.
Would you say then that maybe looking forward, that the focus of your ministry is shifting a bit, and you're thinking more in terms of mentoring and equipping the
Yeah,
people in your partnerships?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
so I think going forward, that would be my role. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'm learning from those mistakes.
Wisdom comes through mistakes as long as we pay attention to what God's trying to tell us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
So, any last thoughts or comments just to wind up? Any perspectives you want to share, or anticipation and faith looking forward? Just any thoughts?
Um, I think it's movements are happening. Many genuine movements are happening. So God is working.
Yes.
God is working, and I think we have to be sensitive to what the Spirit is calling us to do. I realized maybe God is not calling me to launch a movement, maybe to help other people launch a movement. So again, the next 25 years, I want to be working with people who are trying to launch movements, or see the kingdom come in this place.
Amen. Amen. May it be.
Amen.
Well, thank you for this conversation, and look forward to having others listen in to our conversation.
I hope it's a useful conversation, though. I might have
It's
spoken
been,
too much.
no, it's been good. It's been very rich, and I part of the reason for this podcast is to have actual experience, people talking about what it's really like, rather than just this romantic notion of how you do ministry, and when in fact it's often one failure after another, and you realize you grow the hard way. It's good to be able to share. But God's been so good and gracious in your life, and saved you and brought you out of bondage. And
Yeah.
thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Don. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. I hope it's a blessing.
Thanks for listening to the Reflexio podcast. Make sure to rate and review us on your favorite podcasting platform.
You can subscribe to our newsletter, join the discussion on YouTube, and find further information about this episode in the show notes below. See you next time.